Nights at the Circus is a novel by British writer Angela Carter, first published in 1984 and the winner of the 1984 James Tait Black Memorial Prize for Fiction. The novel focuses on the life and exploits of Sophie Fevers, a woman who is, or so she would have people believe, a Cockney virgin, hatched from an egg laid by unknown parents and ready to develop fully fledged wings. At the time of the story, she has become a celebrated aerialist. She captivates the young journalist Jack Walzer, who runs away with the circus and falls into a world that his journalistic exploits had not prepared him to encounter. Angela Olive Pierce, formerly Carter, née Stalker, the 7th of May 1940 to the 16th of February 1992, who published under the name Angela Carter, was an English novelist, short story writer, poet, and journalist, known for her feminist, magical realism, and picaresque works. She is mainly known for her book The Bloody Chamber, 1979. In 1984, her short story, The Company of Wolves, was adapted into a film of the same name. In 2008, The Times ranked Carter 10th in their list of the 50 greatest British writers since 1945. In 2012, Nights at the Circus was selected as the best-ever winner of the James Tait Black Memorial Prize. 2. Nights at the Circus incorporates multiple categories of fiction, including postmodernism, magical realism, and post-feminism. As in her previous works, Carter plays with many literary aspects and dissects the traditional fairy tale structure. In 1994, the novel was broadcast by BBC Radio 4 as a series of readings. It was read by Leslie Manville, abridged by Neville Teller and directed by Neil Cargill. In 2006, it was adapted for the stage by Tom Morris and Emma Rice for the Knee-High Theatre Company. The play was performed at the Lyric Hammersmith in London and the Bristol Old Vic before touring. Plot summary. Edit. London. Edit. Nights at the Circus begins with American journalist Jack Walzer interviewing Sophie Fevers in her London dressing room, following her performance in the circus which employs her. Fevers claims to have been left as a baby in a basket on the doorstep of a brothel. Until she reached puberty she appeared to be an ordinary child, with the exception of a raised lump on each shoulder. As she begins menstruating, however, she also sprouted complete wings. As a child, she posed as a living statue of Cupid in the reception room of the brothel, but as an adolescent, she is now transformed into the image of the winged Victory, holding a sword belonging to Ma Nelson, the madam of the brothel. This stage of Fevers' life comes to an abrupt end when Ma Nelson slips in the street and falls into the path of a carriage. The house and its contents are inherited by her pious brother who plans to convert it to a house for fallen women, but Ma Nelson's employees burn the place down and go their separate ways. Fevers continues her story, although doubt is cast on the veracity of her narrative voice throughout. She and Lizzie, she tells Walzer, next move in with Lizzie's sister and help run the family ice cream parlor. However, when the family falls on hard times, Fevers accepts an invitation from the fearsome Madame Shrek. She puts Fevers on display in her exclusive combination of freak show and brothel, along with several other women with unique appearances. After some time, Madame Shrek sells Fevers to a customer, Christian Rosenkreutz, who wishes to sacrifice a winged Virgo intacta in order to procure his own immortality. Fevers narrowly escapes and returns to Lizzie's sister's home. Soon after their reunion, she joins Colonel Kearney's circus as an aerialist and achieves enormous fame. The London section concludes with Walzer telling his chief at the London office that he is going to follow Fevers, joining the circus on its Grand Imperial Tour. Petersburg. Edit. The Petersburg section begins as Walzer, living in Clown Alley, types up his first impressions of the city. The reader learns that Walzer approached Colonel Kearney who, taking advice from his fortune-telling pig Sybil, offered him a position as a clown in the circus. The reader, and Walzer, are introduced to the other members of the circus and Walzer saves Mignon from being eaten by a tigress. In the next scene the chief clown Buffo and his troupe invoke chaos at their dinner table. Walzer ducks out of the melee only to find Mignon waiting outside for him, as she has nowhere else to go after her husband and lover have both abandoned her. Not sure what to do with the abandoned woman, he takes her to Fevers' hotel room. Fevers assumes that Walzer is sleeping with Mignon but, though jealous, takes care of the girl. On recognizing the beauty of Mignon's singing voice, Fevers introduces her to the Princess of Abyssinia. The princess, a silent tiger tamer, incorporates Mignon into her act with the dancing cats and Walzer is recruited as partner to the redundant tigress. During rehearsals, the acrobatic Charivari family tries to kill Fevers and the colonel reluctantly kicks them out of the circus. Buffo the Great loses his mind during that night's performance and tries to kill Walzer. The princess has to shoot one of her tigresses when she becomes jealous of Mignon for dancing with her tiger mate during the tiger waltz. After her performance, Fevers goes to a date at a mansion belonging to the Grand Duke. Here, she almost falls victim to his amorous advances but narrowly escapes into a Fabergé egg, reaching the circus train as it is about to pull out of the station. This last scene is deliberately bewildering, developing the sense of doubt cast upon the reader in Fevers' early narrative and laying the foundations for the fantastic occurrences of the final section. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/knights_@_circus #text=Petersburg, the %20 final %20 Siberia. Edit. The Siberian section opens with the entire circus crossing the continent to Asia. The train is attacked by a band of runaway outlaws who think that Fevers can help them make contact with the Tsar, who will then allow them to return home to their villages. As the train is now destroyed, the entire circus, other than Walzer, is marched to the convicts' encampment. Walzer is rescued by a group of escaped murderesses and their former guards, who have become their lovers and help them to escape. As Walzer has amnesia, the band of women leaves him for an approaching rescue party, but he flees into the woods before they reach him and is taken under the wing of a village shaman. Fevers and the rest of the party are being held captive by the convicts. Fevers tells the convict leader that she cannot help them as everything that they have heard about her is a lie. Depressed, the convicts sink into drunken mourning. Lizzie convinces the clowns to put on a show for the convicts, during which a blizzard comes, blowing the clowns and the convicts away with it into the night. The remnants of the circus begin to walk in the direction in which they hope civilization lies. They come across a run-down music school and take shelter with its owner, the maestro. A brief encounter with Walzer, now thoroughly part of the shaman's village, convinces Fevers and Lizzie to leave the safety of the maestro's school to search for Walzer. Colonel Carney leaves the group to continue his quest for civilization so as to build another, and more successful, circus. Mignon, the princess and Samson remain with the maestro at his music school. Fevers finds Walzer and the story ends with them together at the moment that the new century dawns and Fevers' victorious cry, "To think I really fooled you." Characters. Edit. Fevers, christened Sophie, the self-defined winged aerialist who acts as the focal point for the circus success. She is 6 feet 2 inches tall, curvaceous, peroxide blonde. Jack Walzer, a California native that stowed away on a departing ship at a young age. He became a journalist and interviewed Fevers before running away with the circus to try to discover the truth of her story. Lizzie, Fevers' adoptive mother, a former prostitute, and political activist revolutionary who may have occult powers. Ma Nelson, the well-loved proprietor of the bordello where Fevers grew up. Madame Shrek, the owner of a female freak show that also functioned as a whorehouse of sorts. Toussaint, the male servant of Madame Shrek who was born without a mouth. Christian Rosenkreutz, a rich religious maniac who believes Fevers is a fallen angel and attempts to sacrifice her. Colonel Carney, the extravagant capitalist and owner of the circus. Little Ivan, the son of Olga Alexandrovna, attempts to run away with the circus but is prevented from doing so by Walzer. Sybil, Colonel Kearney's pet pig, intelligent and clairvoyant, whom he unquestioningly relies on to make nearly all of his business decisions. Princess of Abyssinia, the tiger tamer and piano player who falls in love with Mignon. Monsieur Lamarck, Mignon's abusive alcoholic husband and the monkey trainer of the circus. Mignon, initially a circus hanger-on who transmutes into a beautiful singer who dances the waltz with tigers and falls in love with the princess. Samson, the strong man of the circus and Mignon's lover before she falls in love with the princess. The professor, the head monkey who tricks Colonel Carney into allowing the chimps to leave the circus. Bufo the Great, the leader of the clowns. The Charivaris, a family of trapeze artists and tightrope walkers who try to kill Fevers out of jealousy and from then on carry a curse, doomed to never perform well again. The Grand Duke, a member of the Russian aristocracy who unsettles and scares Fevers with automata and insinuation to the point where she almost loses control of her own narrative. Literary significance and reception. Edit. Though it was one of the later books of her career, Nights at the Circus was the first to bring Angela Carter widespread acclaim, winning that year's James Tate Black Memorial Prize for Fiction. Carter's penultimate novel was met with mixed reviews, some uncomfortable with the underlying politically driven content, while others praised it for its playfulness and originality. Citation needed. Many critics viewed Fevers as a winged version of the New Woman, able to escape the trappings of a patriarchal 19th century and move on into the 20th century of feminist liberation. However, some feminists were disappointed with the novel, criticizing it for upholding a post-feminist stance. Citation needed. Since Angela Carter's death in 1992, both the novel and her reputation have reached even greater levels of popularity. Since then, the novel has made its way onto many academic syllabi and was adapted for the stage by Tom Morris and Emma Rice in 2006. Nights at the Circus inspired British musician Bishy's first album, which has the same title. On 5 November 2019, the BBC News listed Nights at the Circus on its list of the 100 most influential novels. 2. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/nights_@_the_text=literary %20 and %5b 2%5d. Nights at the Circus is an adult fantasy novel by British author Angela Carter, first published in 1984. It takes place in 1899 and follows protagonist Jack Walser, a journalist investigating the mystery of Sophie Fevers, a part woman, part swan who performs as an aerialist at the popular Colonel Kearney's circus. The book was critically acclaimed upon publication and won the James Tate Black Memorial Prize for Fiction in 1984, as well as a nomination for the British Fantasy Award for Best Novel in 1985. Carter was a well-known British writer in the 20th century. She is known for her works of magical realism, including short stories and other novels. Jack Walser, an investigative journalist in London, interviews Sophie Fevers, world-renowned aerialist at Colonel Kearney's traveling circus. However, there is something special about Fevers. She has a pair of swan's wings, which she claims are genuine. Skeptical at first, Walser intends to unearth Fevers's deception. He joins the circus himself undercover as a clown to continue investigating. The novel opens in London in 1899 on the cusp of the new century. Walser interviews Fevers in her dressing room, and she tells him her life story. She was dumped at a brothel as a baby, where her foster mother, Lizzie, cared for her. Lizzie has been her companion ever since. Fevers spent her time at the brothel not as a sex worker but posing as works of art in the foyer for the customers. Once Ma Nelson, the owner, dies, Nelson's brother takes ownership of the property and forces Fevers, Lizzie, and the other women out on the street. Fevers and Lizzie move in with Lizzie's sister, but when financial trouble falls upon the family, Fevers joins a museum owned by Madame Shrek to make money. The museum is an assemblage of other women with physical abnormalities whom Madame Shrek exploits for money. One day, an obsessive customer purchases Fevers and takes her back to his estate. There, he tries to stab her, but Fevers escapes. Fevers reunites with Lizzie and shortly thereafter is introduced to Colonel Kearney, and she takes up her position with the circus. That concludes the interview, and Walser walks Lizzie and Fevers home. Walser, fascinated by Fevers, joins the circus undercover as a clown to continue investigating. The owner of the circus, Colonel Kearney, is obsessed with what he calls the ludic game, and plans to take his circus all the way across Russia to Japan. Walser joins the troupe in St. Petersburg and writes reports on his activities there to send to his news chief back in London. While at the circus, Walser encounters other members of the troupe like the Professor, an ape whose intelligence rivals that of humans, the Princess of Abyssinia, a gifted musician and keeper of dancing tigers, Samson, the strong man, and Mignon, who is a gifted singer and the abused wife of Monsieur Lamarck, the ape keeper. Walser spends most of his time on Clown Alley with the other clowns. The oldest and most experienced clown, Buffo, acts as the leader and muses on the nature of the clown's role, which he allegorizes to Christ. Walser does not encounter Fevers until he injures himself trying to rescue Mignon from an escaped tiger one day. Although displeased to see him, Fevers agrees to keep Walser's true purpose there a secret once he explains himself. Later that night, Mignon finds Walser at Clown Alley and falls to his feet sobbing hysterically. Walser takes her to Fevers, who cares for her and discovers that Mignon can only speak German, but she is a gifted singer. The next day, Fevers approaches the princess about having Mignon incorporated into her act with the dancing tigers. Mignon will sing as the princess plays piano. The two try it out to great success. Fevers's trapeze performance is sabotaged. The same day, Buffo, heavily hungover from a binge drinking spree the night before, loses his sanity and tries to murder Walser on stage during the clown's act. He is restrained and taken to an asylum. The princess is forced to shoot one of her tigers when it attempts to attack Mignon during their act. The apes resign following the performance, and the colonel despairs at the loss of both the apes and Buffo. Meanwhile, Fevers plans to meet one-on-one later that night with someone called the Duke, who is very wealthy. Fevers means to manipulate him to obtain some of his riches. However, the Duke nearly imprisons her, and Fevers only gets away by supernatural means. She joins Lizzie and the rest of the circus troupe on the Trans-Siberian Railway bound for Japan. The train explodes partway through the Siberian wasteland, and the Colonel, Fevers, Lizzie, Samson, Mignon, the princess, and the clowns are taken hostage by a group of brigands who live in the woods. Walzer is left behind, hidden under debris and presumed dead by the rest of the group. A group of women who have just escaped from an isolated corrections house for murderesses dig him up. Walzer has no memory of who he is and reverts to childlike behaviors like rubbing his stomach and calling his saviors, Mama. Walzer runs into a shaman in the woods, who believes that Walzer's nonsensical ramblings are communications from Walzer's ancestors, therefore a sign that Walzer is about to become a shaman himself. The shaman takes Walzer back to his tribe's village, where Walzer spends the next month training to be a shaman, recalling hazy moments from his past every now and again but with no sensical way to put them together. Meanwhile, the brigands who have kidnapped the circus folk reveal that they blew up the train and are on the run from the law. They kidnapped Fevers because they want her to supplicate the Tsar for mercy for their crimes. The brigands think Fevers can do this because Colonel Carney had previously advertised that Fevers was engaged to the Prince of Wales, which is false to draw audiences. Seeing as the Tsar of Russia also married into the British royal family, the brigands think that Fevers might hold sway with the Tsar. Fevers refutes this theory categorically. The clowns perform for the brigands, hoping to put them in good humor so that the troupe can negotiate their release. The clowns call down the forces of chaos, and the brigands are blown completely away, allowing the troupe to escape. They trek across the Siberian taiga and come upon a cabin in the woods occupied by a single, crazed man called the Maestro. Fevers and Walzer reunite momentarily outside the Maestro's cabin when Walzer happens upon it with a group of the tribespeople. However, the tribespeople are startled by the sight of a woman with wings, taking Fevers for an evil spirit, and run away. Walzer recalls that he knows Fevers, but still cannot remember her or himself completely. Fevers and Lizzie happen upon one of the tribe's women giving birth in the woods and take her and her newborn child back to the village. After a brief misunderstanding where the tribespeople once again think that Fevers is an evil spirit, Fevers reveals her wings to them, and they are utterly in awe of her. This moment restores Walzer's memory and Fevers' sense of self. The novel ends with the dawning of the new century, and Fevers' triumphant, carefree laughter as she and Walzer are finally together.